Okay, so now we go to the audit tools and documentation, no? So what are the learning objectives that we should be getting after we discuss um, the audit tools and documentation? So first is to demonstrate theoretical knowledge of various internal audit frameworks and reporting tools. So ano yung theory behind the tools that are used in the audit, no? Of course, these tools are embedded or included also in the internal audit framework and reporting tool, no? So how can we use that tool in doing the audit? How can we use that tool in reporting our findings to the tawag dito, to our stakeholders like the board of directors and the management, no? So through these tools, mas madali nilang maintindihan din yung course ng audit nyo, no? Or yung mismong pag tawag dito, yung inyong ginawang audit. Okay? So number two, to know how to distinguish and to prepare the audit reporting tool. So we have 8 reporting tools. So how I mean ano yung mga audit tools na to, ano yung use ng mga to, no? Through that we can distinguish and prepare the different audit reporting tools. Okay? Number three, describe the advantage and disadvantage of using the audit reporting tool. So, later on, no, meron tayong mga advantage and disadvantage of ano yung, if in case in this kind of analysis, ano yung mas applicable na tools. So, may mga ganun din tayo, no? Next, number four, to present internal audit issues or findings using 2 to 3 tools discussed, no? It's possible nga na through the audit tools, no, we kahit hindi natin ipakita um, na ma-word yung ating finding through the tools that we can use, no, mas madaling maintindihan ng ating mga reader or user ng report natin yung ating audit finding. Okay? Next, enumerate the 8 areas of waste. So, meron din tayo yan. Number 6, document effectively the audit findings using the CCCER or the 5C model. Okay? Then number 7, write, present, and discuss persuasive audit findings. So how can we make our audit findings really persuasive to our readers? That maybe particularly sa mga process owners na sa kanila naka-address yung audit finding. How can we make this audit findings really convincing to them that it's really an audit finding? Okay? And lastly, engage the stakeholders on the discussion on audit findings and recommendations through the well-written audit reports, no? So sabi nga natin last time, no, one of the qualities na dapat meron ng isang internal auditor is dapat siya ay very articulate and if possible, no, ma-convey niya yung message niya, no, dun sa possibly yung audit finding niya na maintindihan siya ng kanyang mga stakeholder. Kasi kahit minsan, no, sobrang galing natin pero kunwari hirap tayo mag-explain sa ating mga kausap kung ano yung concept or yung mismong minimin natin or yung the message that we want to communicate, no, kung hindi ka ganun ka effective, well, parang minsan wala na ring, I mean, does the do the audit finding really warrant further action by the management? Mga tipong ganun, no? Kasi baka mamaya, maganda talaga yung audit finding mo. You know the technicalities of doing the audit, no? You for yourselves, no? Alam mo yun na it's a good finding pero you can't communicate it well to your stakeholder. So, paano yun, di ba? Paano magiging finding yung isang finding? Naintindihan? So, yun yung laging struggle ng mga tao, lalo na in some of the technical areas. So, it's an experience, of course, kunwari, yung mga IT experts, no, most of them has this hard time really on communicating what are their thoughts. Kaya nga nandyan yung tawag ito, systems analyst and systems analyst, no, para maging tawag dito mediator between the users of the information system and the programmers, no. Okay? So just like with auditors, as much as possible, kailangan magaling din tayo makipag-communicate sa ating mga stakeholders. I-convince natin yung mga audit finding na meron tayo is really an audit finding. Okay? So we have here the 8 tools, no. Most likely bakang abutin lang natin hanggang half, no, yung cause and effect to, ha. Sorry for the typo error, no. So we have here the histograms, so the control charts, the Pareto charts, the cause and effect diagram or the Ishikawa diagram. And then we also have the force field analysis, the flow charts, the 5S techniques, and the check sheets, no. So first we go to the first tool, the histogram, no. When we say histogram, sorry, these are charts that show the frequency distribution of numerical data using rectangle, each of which represents interval. So medyo may pagka-statistics tayo ngayon, no. Well, basically the histograms will tell us or help us rather kung ano yung frequency of a certain values, ranges of values, no. Kunwari, sa survey nyo, in your accountancy research, remember, meron kayong mga in-indicate doon, ano yung ilan yung number of respondents that are age, that has or that have the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. No? You can actually use the histogram for you to visually see the frequency. Okay, when say frequency, the number of instances on a certain value or data, no? So let me know ha kung medyo technical na yung mga sinasabi ko, pero I think so far naman siguro naintindihan niyo naman ako, no. Mamaya meron tayong sample diagram, ano itsura ng histogram, no. They also display the probability distribution of a continuous variable. When say continuous variable, kasi meron tayong what we call discrete variable. When you say discrete variable, these are within a set, siya ay distinct and defined. With a continuous variable, it's possible na from negative infinity to positive infinity, no. You get the derivative. De joke lang, hindi tayo magde-derivative, no. Kasi may possible range of values, kaya sinabi na histograms are usually this can be used for probability distribution of a continuous variable. Okay, let's say for example, ano ba yung pwede natin ilagay? Ano ba yung mga values na may negative tayo? For example, kasi hindi lang siya discrete eh. It also considers continuous variable. So, for example, we are looking for the temperature of different countries during this day. Okay? So, for sure, may mga negative dyan na degrees Celsius, like countries that are located near the South and the North Pole. For example, Iceland, Greenland, Canada, definitely yung kanilang mga temperatures are negative. Okay? And then doon sa mga positive, no, most likely kasama ang Pilipinas. So yung sa mga may init na lugar like desert island like Saudi Arabia, no, even during summer umaabot sila ng 50 degrees. So nakikita mo there is a very a widespread of temperature. So that is what we call continuous variable, no. Kahit negative yung value, we also consider, no. Pero of course in accounting, no, in the audit, no, hindi naman usually nagagamit siya unless, no, one of the value or indicator that you want to check is also the temperature of the machine, kasi you want to measure the efficiency of the machine as to its temperature. Meaning, kung negative ang temperature ng isang machine, it's an indicator that, or indicator lang naman yun na medyo may possibly na baka medyo may kailangang i-maintain na over that machine, no? As much as possible, lalo na kung well-maintained naman yung machine, dapat hindi siya mag-negative or mag-over positive, no? Pangatipong ganun. Ibig sabihin, not within the normal range of values. Okay? So, example also would be in accounting, you all know this one, no? The aging of the receivable. In what instances would be the account customer falling into 0 to 10 days, 11 to 20 days, 21 days to 30 days, pwede ring 31 days to 40 days, pwedeng over 60 days, meaning that the account balance of the customer are already overdue. So you can use histogram over that. Kasi doon mo makikita visually kung ano yung current frequency ng iyong data or ng values. Kung nakikita mo na medyo marami ang over 60, it's an indicator that the company has a problem with regard to their receivable management, no? Hindi nila, possibly lang naman yun, no? It's an indicator. Pwede kasing very delinquent lang talaga yung customer. There's no way that the customer can be ano yan, yung makausap na bayaran yung yung kanilang utang. Pwedeng ganun, or pwede rin naman talagang may shortcoming yung organization sa pag-collect talaga ng accounts receivable. So, you can use histogram over that. Okay? So, the range of values of the continuous variable is divided into a series of intervals on the x-axis. So, ano itsura nga pala ng ating histogram? So, ito yon. Okay? Kinuha ko lang to, no? Screenshot ko lang to. So, ito yung example natin kanina, the range of days, no, of the accounts receivable, no, na outstanding siya. Okay? So ito, based on the histogram, no, the payment time. So ang analysis natin dito is ganong katagal nagpe-pay ang customer from the day na nagkaroon ng sale transaction up to the time of payment, no. It's also a good practice of or a good analysis of knowing gaano ba kaganda yung collection or credit and collection efforts na meron ng isang organization. So it's more of a financial management aspect. Okay? So, yung sinasabi natin, the x-axis would be the interval. Ito yung interval niya. So, we have here 9.5 to 12.5 days. So, ito yung range niya on the x-axis. We have here the 12.5 to 15.5 days na payment time. Then, we have here the 15.5 to 18.5. So, that is also a range, no? So, that is in the x-axis. While on the y-axis, it's your frequency. Okay? Then the count on how many values fall into each interval is shown as bars on the chart, no? Ito 'yon, yung frequency. Kung gaano yung karami yung count ng bawat item, no, or ng item for each of the interval na in-indicate natin on the x-axis. So pwede nating sabihin na yung payment time from 9.5 to 12.5 days, it's possibly na below 5, no? Wala kasi tayong value dito. Pwedeng 3, pwedeng 4. Now, for the number of payments falling in the range of 12.5 to 15.5 payment days, 15.5 days, has a frequency of possibly 14, no? Kasi below half pa siya ng 15, no? So, mga tipong ganun. Okay? Of course, the histograms are used to assess the distribution of data and help to identify how the data points are distributed. So, it's more of the distribution. Kasi possible kasi makikita mo na, 'di ba, the normal curve that you will see is a bell curve, no? Kung medyo may kakaiba as to its distribution, possibly that the bell curve is or the curve is skewed on the left or on the right, possibly merong siyang kwento, no? That's what we call analytical procedure. We need to check if the the graph makes sense based on the nature of business of the organization and based on the policy and procedures na meron ng isang organization. Okay? In so doing, no, the information is more than a picture of the data points, but instead shows a flow of the data. No, it shows really the flow of the data. This can be very useful for the auditor and very helpful to understand the dynamics affecting the process under review. So yun yung sinasabi natin, no? Meaning the dynamics, the graph showing different patterns, no? kunwari kung nakaskewed siya sa right or nakaskewed siya sa left, no, may kwento yon. For example, the age of accounts receivable is skewed to the left. When we say skewed to the left, no, yung bell curve niya, mas mahaba yung kanyang left tail, no? Skewed to the left kasi, tama ba? Skewed to the left. So mahaba yung kanyang left tail. So meaning, yung data mo mas marami doon sa um, upper values. Naintindihan? So, possible kung yan accounts receivable, um, yung outstanding balances ng mga clients mo, mas marami sa dulo. Ano ibig sabihin nun? So, maraming mga nagsasagad na babayaran siya sa maximum credit period mo. Let's say, for example, 60 days. So, nakita mo pag ganun yung graph. So, maraming 45 days, maraming 60 days. So, pwede mong ma-assess na there is a possible lack of collection efforts. Okay? So, paano kung nakaskewed naman sa right? So, meaning, mas maraming frequency doon sa lower value. So, meaning, yung kanyang age is nasa 10 days, 15 days. No? Ibig sabihin, maganda yung collection efforts mo. No? Possible na ganun. Kasi, bulk of the collection, nasa 5 to 10 days, hindi pa nagbabayad talaga. Ngayon, pagdating ng 15, ng 20, ng 30 days, pakonti ng pakonti. Meaning, that the company has a good collection effort. Possible kasi na nagpo-provide sila ng credit discount. Tama ba yung credit discount? Or, tawag dito, may tawag doon eh. Help me guys. What do you call this one? If you pay the discount within that credit term, ayun, credit term. So, may credit term silang ginagamit na may discount. Let's say, for example, the company gives a credit term of 2, 10, and 30. Meaning, if you pay the accounts receivable within 15 days, you have a discount of 2% to your payment or from your payment. And if hindi, if you pay beyond 15 days, so forfeited yung discount. No? Pero dapat paid yung iyong accounts receivable by end of 30 days. Otherwise, it will be considered as an nakalimutan ko yung term, pero overdue na yung iyong balance. Okay? Naintindihan? Kaya very helpful talaga ang histograms. So when are histograms used? First is they summarize large data sets graphically. So meaning we can visually see, no? Redundant na, we can visually analyze, no, kung ano yung mini-mean ng data. Not just mere seeing the raw data and you don't see any sense out of it. No? Through the histogram, may kita mo yung pattern, yung trend. Okay? When are histograms used also? When we are comparing measurements to specification. So, yun lang yun, no? Yung we are putting the range within the x-axis and the frequency. So, that is comparing measurements to specification. So, through the range, we can compare each range, no, kung ano yung pinakamalaki, ano yung kasi from the histogram you can determine the mean, mode, and median, right? So most likely yung sino may pinakamataas na bar, siya yung mode, right? Tama ba? Yun. Okay? Also, when are histograms used? To communicate information to the team, no? Kahit hindi mo minsan ikwento, pero pag pinakita mo ng histogram sa team, alam na nila ibig sabihin nun. But of course, if you'll be documenting the histogram, you need to write a short narrative of what analysis have you gone through, no? Doon sa pagtingin mo ng graph, no? Ano yung iyong reference, no, saying that, no, based on the policy and procedures, this is the normal range. But in our analysis, based on the histogram, no, we get the following values, or we got the following values. Okay? And of course, with the histogram, it helps us assist in decision making. Lalo na for us auditors, no, kung nakikita natin na parang in terms of what audit adjustment or recommendation we can provide to our client. Now, for the audit client, our recommendation would be very helpful. Kasi kung we see something uh, based from the histogram na may kailangan pang improve, then it will really help them, I mean the management in the decision making. For example, pwede nilang baguhin yung kanilang credit policy if in case nakita nilang very lenient, no, or very relaxed yung kanilang credit and collection policy. If very stringent naman yung credit and collection policy naman nila, let's say for example, talagang very aggressive sa collection, no, baka pwede namang i-relax naman ng konti kasi 'di ba, there is a trade-off between giving good discounts to the customer and of course yung ating ano rin naman cash flow. No, we don't want na kapag stringent ang collection efforts natin, maglulose tayo ng customer. Ibig sabihin, pipilitin natin sila na magbayad agad, 'di ba? Ay for sure, yung customer ayaw nun, no? Kung pwedeng pahabain yung days na nasa kanila yung pera or hawak nila yung pera, gagawin nila, no? Pero of course there's a balance also of giving them trade discount, no? Kaya parang minsan parang nagmi-meet halfway ang customer and tayo as the seller of goods and service, no, in terms of our cash management, no. So dito natin siya ma-relate sa cash management, receivables management, also with inventory management. With inventory management, for example, if you're familiar with slow moving inventory, with fast moving inventory, 'di ba? If there's an indicator that we have slow moving inventory, meaning we want to check the age of the inventory from the time it was sent to the warehouse up until yung pag-count natin. Baka mamaya sobrang tagal na nabili yung ating inventory. It's a slow-moving inventory. It's an indicator na pwede siyang lagyan ng allowance for inventory obsolescence. Okay? Yung mga tipong ganon. Okay? So that is for the histogram. So, how can we create the histogram, no? At first glance, no, histograms resemble bar charts, no, and casual observers or chart preparers may confuse the two. No, pwede kasing usually kasi ang histogram, no, magkakadikit yung kanilang bar, no. Yung bar charts hindi, magkakahiwalay. Histograms are used for continuous data. So the x-axis and the interval shown on it represents a range of data. No, it's a range of data. It's a continuous variable, and the bars are stuck next to each other. When you say stuck, yun nga magkakadikit. Bar charts, on the other hand, plot categorical variables, meaning categories of data points, and have gaps or spaces in between the bars. Differentiate one variable from each other. No, with the histogram, a range of values. With the bar chart, it's possible na bawat point doon sa x-axis hindi siya value. It's possible na siya ay an attribute variable, meaning kunwari color of eyes, no, based from the survey, no. Green eyes have out of 150. For the blue eyes, 30. For the black eyes, it's 30. So yun yung pinagkaiba ng bar graph and histogram. Okay? By observing the pattern of a histogram, internal auditors can get an enhanced understanding of the data plotted. So, kanina ko pa sinasabi yun, no? Once na na-plot yun, nakagawa ng histogram, maraming pwedeng analysis na gawin si auditor with regard to that. Of course, it will really depend on the nature of the raw data na pinanggalingan, no? Kung inventory, so most likely you want to see the age of the inventory items and malalaman mo kung may mga slow-moving inventory that can be subjected to obsolescence. Okay? So, next, how now we create histogram? So, first is to calculate the range of value. So, for example, we need to determine the minimum and the maximum value. Okay? And number 2, divide the range into evenly spaced intervals. I think with statistics, nakalimutan ko na, pasensya na kasi alam ko may standard computation yan kung ano yung magiging denominator mo para malaman mo yung range mo. So in this case, sa audit profession, we're not very strict with that, no? Parang pwede tayo mag-set ng range. Just like with your tawag dito, accountancy and internal auditing research, 'di ba? You were not given that kind of stratification, no? Yung mag-stratify ka ng data. Minsan nga nakita ko iba-iba kayo ng ano eh, ng parang values like you in one of the questions nakita ko meron doon na may range of value of the age. Kunwari, 18 to 19, 20 to 21. Yung iba, individually in-indicate yung 18, 19, 20. Okay? So, it will be actually depend on our professional judgment. Okay? It's possible kasi that you can even have an evenly spaced interval based on the aging, no? Ang common kasi sa aging of accounts receivable or payables or even the inventory is 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, no? May mga tipong ganun. Okay? And then now that you have a range of an evenly spaced interval, we need to count the number of observation in each interval. Just like with your responses in the accountants in your questionnaires accountancy research and internal auditing research, 'di ba? You tally yung responses ng inyong respondents, no? Let's say for example, for the profile again, no, itatali mo kung ilan doon ang male and female as to the gender, ano yung tally ng age ng 18, 19, 20, 21, no? Yun yung counting the number of observation in each interval. Okay? So, please do remember na interval to, no? We are tawag dito, indicating the intervals in the histogram. Okay? Then number 4, create the bars where the height represents the count in each interval. So, self-explanatory. So, most likely, pag mas marami kang count on that range, mas mataas yung iyong bar. And you follow the values in the y-axis, the frequency. Okay? And number 5, the y-axis represents the number of items fitting into each category. So, yun nga, if nakita mo yung value dun sa y-axis, yung kanyang frequency, then most likely that's the ceiling of your bar in the histogram. Okay? So, that's for the histogram. Okay, so yan yung example natin ng histogram. Okay? Okay. Now we go to the control chart. So, yung control charts, to tell you, hindi ko talaga din siya nagamit. Pero nung nabasa ko siya way back, I think 3 years ago dahil sa exam, nakita ko yung essence ng control chart. Maganda siya. Most likely, these are very useful sa mga quality control, no? If you already heard the word quality control. So, what is a control chart? Control chart, it is a graph used to plot and study how a process changes over time. So, this graph, as you can see, most likely the x-axis would be represented by the time period. No, you want to see the process kung if it is improving or not over a time period. So in here, data are plotted in time order in a similar fashion as run charts. Okay? A control chart has a central line for the average or the target value for the process being plotted, an upper line for the upper control limit, which is the maximum allowable value given the established performance specification, and a lower line for the lower control limit. We have two types of control charts. So we have here the first one, the variable charts, which involve the measurement of the job dimensions, and the attribute chart only differentiates between a defective item and a non-defective item. So, ano bang itsura ng ating control chart? So, yan. So, as you can see, we have here a graph again. The x-axis is your time sequence or the time period, no? Ano yan? Of course, progressive yung time natin. So, possibly, 1 year yung kaniyang kada point. And then, we have here the sample value. Okay? It's possible na the value would be kunwari, we want to have a time and motion study. Tama ba? Okay. Familiar kayo sa time and motion study. So, sa isang process or procedure, we want to know how many minutes or ano yung time niya, no, na it would take a person to complete a certain task. Okay? So, doon sa time and motion study, may 10 observation. Then, um, ino-observe ng observer, no, kung ano yung time na natapos niya yung isang task. It's possible na um, it's the same person. It's possible a different person doing the job for 10 instances. No, tinitingnan niyo yung average for us to know yung average of time in accomplishing or finishing the task, no? And based on the time and motion study, doon natin malalagay kung ano yung dapat I mean the average time that a person would normally finish the task, no? So in this case, no, kung may 10 tao, no, ilagay lang natin muna yung time and motion study dito, no. So person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4 hanggang 10. So dito may value siya ng time. Okay? So, kunwari, ang kanyang value dito is 4, dito 6, 4, 5.5, 5.7, 4.7, 5.1. So, hanggang sa makarating tayo sa 10 person, so makukuha natin yung average output. No? Based from na given data, sabihin natin ang average output is 5. So, that is the average output. So, meaning, based from the sum of all the values divided by the number of frequency or instance, no, doon natin makukuha yung average output, no. Doon natin malalaman is it above or below the average value. Okay, when we say upper control limit and lower control limit, no, if you can recall your standard costing, we have there a concept of budget, di ba? So with the budget, pagpalagay natin the average output, it's your tawag dito, your budget. And definitely hindi naman palagi na eksakto yung actual laging budget, no? Pwedeng unfavorable variance, possible that the actual value would be above the average, no? Or below the average or below the budget, that is a favorable variance. So, 'di ba, it's a controlling phase of the management function. So, dapat yung makukuha nating actual values within the acceptable range. So, pwede nating sabihin na yung the upper control limit and the lower control limit, yung gitna niyan, yan yung acceptable range. Ngayon, kung nag-go beyond ka doon sa upper control limit and lower control limit, that is, that's where management by exception comes in. Ibig sabihin, bakit ka nag-exceed doon sa maximum and bakit, or in other words din, or tawag ito, or doon sa other opposite, doon sa opposite naman na bakit ka nag-go below doon sa minimum, that would require an exception reporting wherein there is a need for justification. Ibig sabihin, you need to explain bakit ka may ganong variance na you go beyond the upper control limit and the lower control limit. Naintindihan? So, balik tayo doon sa sa two types. So, yung example natin kanina of the budget na may upper and lower control limit, yun yung tinatawag nating variable chart. Okay? Now, with the attribute chart naman, no, there's only two variable involved, no? A defective item and a non-defective item. So, basically, kapag defective item nasa taas, pag non-defective item nasa baba. Okay? So, ano lang siya, parang a binary variable lang. Now, with the variable chart, no, it is also, hindi naman siya continuous variable, pero we have a range of variable na nandoon yung acceptable range of values. Naintindihan? No? Just like with the quality control, let's say for example, pwedeng to i-put into actual natin na scenario na anong example ito pagdating sa audit. Let's say for example, in a production, no, we have a time sequence of daily. So, kunwari, October 1, October 2, October 3, October 4, no, we have an average output, no. It's possible that it's the average defective units, no. Ang average defective units, no, depende sa management, kunwari naset nila 2. Kasi by the nature of the production, dahil marami talagang mga spoilage, scrap, no? Meron talagang defective units, no? Let's say 2. Now, that's the average output. The lower control limit is possibly it's only 0. And the upper control limit, yung kayang i-tolerate ng management is up until only 4 defective units. So, when you plot each day, kunwari, for October 1, wala kang defective unit. So, that is 0. Now, in day 2, if you have a defective unit of 2, at least nasa range pa. Now, in day 3, if you have a defective unit of 1, no, it's still reasonable. Now, if you have a defective unit of 5, you exceeded or you go beyond the upper control limit. So, that's where management by exception comes in. Doon mo need mag-justify sa management bakit ka nagkaroon ng deviation. Naintindihan? So, yun. Yun yung example natin ng control chart. We want from the term itself, no, control chart, we want to control a certain process, a certain output, a certain input, no? To check at makontrol na if we go beyond this one, what can we do? So at least kapag na-correct yun, kunwari, we done some corrections in the policy and procedure, no, para maiwasan yung defective units na mangyari ulit, dapat in the next succeeding days or in the succeeding days, there should be no more instance of exceeding the acceptable range of value. Okay? Intindihan? So, ganun siya. Ganun yung control chart. It's a control tool also for the management. Now, it is also helpful for the auditor to check if there are any deviations, and if may deviations na note yung ating auditor, meron bang ginawang action yung management in terms of addressing it? Or na-report ba sa management accordingly? Kung hindi, what's the reason? If na-report, then probably they follow the protocol. If na-report, anong naging decision of the management with regard to the justification? May improvement ba? I mean, would there be a revision to the policy and procedure that would address the noted deviation? Okay? So going back, no, I need to cite some important information about control chart. So this actually sabi nga natin, no, process owners are responsible for setting the structure of their processes and programs. So establishing setting the goals and objectives, identifying the relevant risks to the achievement of those objectives, and designing controls to mitigate those risks. So, in here, controls, just like risk, must be monitored. Okay? And tracking of their performance will provide the management with the valuable information about the strengths and weakness of these controls and what should be done to strengthen them if in case may deviation nga. Okay? Also, the management is responsible for establishing the performance standards, no, which should be used to monitor the performance of processes and programs and to identify anomalies that require management intervention. So, yun din yung essence ni control charts. If meron kang mga nakitang deviation, no, it's possible that there is hindi naman like suspicion, pero sabi nga natin, possible anomaly, or the proper term is actually only deviation lang, kasi medyo strong yung words na suspicion, fraud, anomalies, unless proven, no, may pieces of evidence tayo to prove it na talagang it's an anomaly or a fraud. Okay? So in here, these performance standards are best when they are based on quantitative information. Okay? That can be counted, sorted, analyzed, and reported periodically. No, yun nga yung sinasabi natin sa control charts, no, dun sa values on the y-axis, as much as possible dapat quantifiable siya. We can use values, no, with the quality control. Yun nga ang pwede nating measurement for that, kahit sounds like parang, sir, bakit ganun? Ano yun parang quality control, so more on qualitative siya. So, ang pwede nating indicator of that is number of defects. Okay? So, it can also consist of qualitative information that can shed light regarding characteristics of the underlying information. Kasi nga meron tayong attribute chart. So, the defective item and non-defective item. Okay? In either case, this information can be and should be used by internal auditors during the performance of their work. No? Errors, anomalies, variations should be identified by the management during the course of their management activities. No? Using also the control charts. Possible error lang siya. Okay? Among the tools available to document this monitoring are control charts, yung ngayon nasabi natin. In fact, they are particularly well-suited tool for this task. Okay? So, that is for the control chart. So, what this chart does? So, ito, ano ba yung ginagawa ng chart na to? So, kanina may mga nabanggit na ako. So, what more can be used for this chart, no? Number one, it detects the variations in the processing and warns if there is any departure from any specified tolerance limit. So, yung sinasabi ko, within the acceptable range of values, no? Kung siya ay mag-exceed sa upper limit or sa lower limit, no? It can detect variation and warns the management, no? Baka kasi nga possibly merong anomaly, no? Wag naman, possibly error lang. Okay? Mga tipong ganon. Okay. Another would be it is primarily a diagnostic technique. So through the use of checking kung may mga nag fall under the acceptable range, it's a diagnostic technique already. Okay? Number 3, it depicts whether there is any changes on the characteristics of item since the start of the production run. It's possible kasi na we can see na baka deteriorating na rin yung quality ng ating machine, no? That's one factor. Possibly the quality of the raw materials that we are purchasing from our supplier, no? Maraming factors na need i-consider din naman. Okay? Number 4, a control chart indicates whether a process is in control or out of control. Maganda sana kung ang deviation mo is nangyayari sa instances na kunwari, once in a week or once in a month, pero kung siya ay laging nangyayari, so more frequently nangyayari, that is out of control. Lalo na if you corrected something over the process, then the process is still out of control, then there is something management needs to do over that. Okay? Number 5, it determines processes variability and detects unusual variation taking place in a process. So, more of trend to, or yung pag nakikita mo na medyo out of control na, baka may mga unusual variations na, so baka may kwento rin to, just like with the histogram. No? It tells you something that merong possibly control deficiency, maaaring may material weakness na over that control, no? Mga tipong ganon. Okay? Next, it ensures product quality level. So ito naman talaga yung use talaga ni control chart, no? To ensure the product quality level, no? Kung may defect item, kung may non-defect item, okay? Number 7, it warns in time, and if the process is rectified, in time scrap percentage can be reduced. So yun nga, kung lalo na sa mga defect again, may kita mo dapat may improvement sa control chart, no? Lalo na kung medyo may problem talaga na long term yung kanyang effect, no? If you improve the process, dapat nare-rectify yung or nako-correct yung defects over a period of time hanggang sa maging normal na, no? Malapit doon sa average value. Okay? Number 8, it provides information about the selection of process and setting of tolerance limit. So, 'di ba nabanggit yung management by exception? So meaning if may mga pumasok or may lumabas sa tolerance limit, no, based on the management's decision, ano ba yung acceptable range, and based from historical information, kung siya ay the actual scenario or the actual value again goes beyond that acceptable range, no, it will provide an information to the relevant stakeholders over that process, no. Number 9, control charts build up the reputation of the organizations through customer satisfaction. So, possible din naman na through quality, of course, if we have no defects, no, for the longest time, it will, well not absolutely ensure na meron talagang customer satisfaction, but rather, it will build that kind of reputation sa isang negosyo or organization na um, pwede nating masabi na magkakaroon tayo ng customer satisfaction. Okay? Or the other way around, no? Kung may customer satisfaction, most likely, it will build a good reputation for the organization. Okay? So another, there are also different notes about control charts, no? They are modified run charts, no? And show, when I say run charts, ano ba yung itsura ng run charts? Ganun din siya eh. Parang wala lang siyang upper, lower control limit and average value. Tanggalin mo yon. Yung run chart, yun yung parang over time period, nakikita mo yung parang galaw ng values. Now, with the control charts, magiging control chart lang yan kapag may upper and lower limit lang siya. And also, the average value. And it also showed the placement of data points so that the patterns and deviations can be promptly identified. So doon nga kasi visually you can see in the chart na mayroon tayong deviation. Doon mo na makikita agad. Whereas kung titingnan mo lang siya ng raw data, no, di mo agad makikita. Yun lang yun. Okay? So nakikita niyo yung importance ng mga charts, no, in terms of visually aiding you in doing the analysis. So the sophistication of control charts can vary, no? But in general, they typically consist of the following. Number 1, points representing the mean or the average ranges or expected value of measurements of a characteristics in samples taken from the process at different times. These data points are similar and related to the sample units internal auditors select for testing during the audit. Okay? So number 2, the mean using all the samples is calculated. The mean of the means or the mean of the ranges. In this case, for the control charts, it's the mean of the ranges. And a center line is drawn at the value of the mean. So meaning, ito lang siya, yung average output. Yun, the mean of the range. Okay? Next, the standard deviation for the mean of the values is calculated using all the samples. So, when you say standard deviation, no, yung for each of the values from the mean or the average output in this case, no, ano yung kanyang distance, yun yung standard deviation natin. Okay? So, kinakalculate yan sa lahat ng samples to check kung gaano kalayo yung mga values doon sa mean, no? Kasi we want to measure the margin of error, no? Tipong ganon, di ba? Kasi kung medyo malalayo yung mga deviation over the mean, it's an indicator na may possibly mali, we can improve further of that, no? And kung maganda, lahat ng actual output nasa mean, so walang standard deviation, it's a good indicator that the process is working perfectly. Pero remember, wala namang perfect sa mundong ito. Okay? So kaya nandiyan si statistics to measure standard deviation, the margin of error, okay, mga tipong ganyan. Okay? Of course, if you have a high value of standard deviation and variance, definitely may problem, no? And if there's a problem, no, as an auditor, you can intuitively say na may ganito tayong problem and you can recommend something over that deficiency or deviation. Okay? Number 4, upper and lower control limits, no, typically set at the 3 standard deviations of the center line. Okay? Of the typically set at the 3 standard deviations of the center line are drawn to indicate the thresholds, no, at which the output is considered statistically unlikely and out of bounds. Okay, so yun nga, i-mention ko pa ba? So, the upper and lower limits would tell you if this is considered out of bound, out of normal, out of standard, no? And out of reasonable range of value, no? Kasi kung go beyond siya doon, it is unlikely that the value would happen, no? And kung may ganun nga, possibly nga na merong mali. Okay? Number 5, additional lines may be drawn at 1 and 2 standard deviations above and below the center line. Okay? Creating bands around the mean to assess the frequency of observations or transactions in each zone. This division into zones provides a mechanism to formulate rules and can be translated into risk triggers and concern points, no? Okay? So that is the control charts. Now we go to the third audit tool, what we call the Pareto chart. So I think you're very familiar with the Pareto chart or the 80-20 rule. So yun yung Pareto principle. So in here, it says here that many events, approximately 80% of the effects are caused by the 20% of the causes. Okay, so parang sa dalawang chart, no, ito yung effort, ito yung effect or yung cause effect. 20% of the cause represents 80% of the it translates into 80% of the effect, while the remaining 80% of the cause constitute 20% of the effects, no? Parang ganon. So parang pwede rin nating i-put into practical use, no? Let's say for example, hindi siya 80-20 eh. Remember, may kasabihan tayo that 1% of the population owns 99% of the wealth of the whole world, while the remaining 99% of the population owns 1% of the wealth of the world. Alam nyo ba yung ganung kasabihan? Yung ganung may ganung I don't know kung anong tawag doon. May ganun akong nakuhang concept from a training, which is very true, no? Imagine niyo, no, yung value ni Cynthia Villar, 'di ba? Ilan siya? Billion siya. Takay mo ilang tao na pwede magkasya doon na pwede nating gastusin yun on a very normal way of incurring expenses, 'di ba? Siya kasi parang ang tagal niya maubos yan. I think beyond lifetime, no? Or kung siya ay ma-reincarnate, 'di ba? Dala-dala niya 'yun. Pero we all know naman na hindi natin madadala talaga ang kayamanan sa libingan, no? Ibig ko lang sabihin the Pareto principle is really true, no? Hindi lang siya 80-20 rule. Yung 80-20 rule, yun kasi yung parang na-set na figure, no? That represents all the scenarios. Pero it also represent, basta ang ibig lang sabihin natin dito, a small amount of the effort or the cost would result to majority of the effect or the total effects. Okay? While the majority of the cost only constitute a small amount of the effect of the total effects, or only a small portion of the total effects. Naintindihan? Okay? So sa inyo tinuro sa inyo na ganun siya 80-20 rule, pero ano lang siya, parang common knowledge lang siya na 80-20, pero hindi talaga. Okay? Okay, this principle essentially means that there is a concentration of sources that internal auditors should identify for best result. Pareto analysis is a formal technique useful where many possible courses of action are competing for attention. Pwede nating tulad sa ginagawa nating audit, the risk-based audit. Okay? So, in the risk-based audit, we should be focusing on those areas that have a high risk. Most likely, this high risk constitute yung possibility, the probability of a material misstatement would happen, no? Kasi kung nandun yung mga high risk, ano bang mga high risk areas natin? For example, the cash, the revenue. Yan yung mga may init sa mata talaga organization kung paano nila palalakihin. So doon talaga nagko-concentrate yung mga auditors. Okay? So doon most likely merong material misstatement. Would you expect na ang prepaid expense or prepaid rent would be a room for an opportunity to for the perpetrator to do fraud? Hindi naman, 'di ba? Anong gagawin niya sa prepaid expense? Meron ba siyang magigain doon? So doon ka tumingin sa mga high risk na susceptible or may vulnerability for misappropriation. Naintindihan? So, pwede ring, tingnan nyo nga, minsan petty cash, pwede pang nakawin. Di ba? So, kaya tinitingnan yung petty cash, kahit maliit lang yung value niya. Pero kung, remember, there is what we call replenishment of petty cash. Kung laging nangyayari yan, recurring yung theft, most likely, di ba, a small amount, when aggregated, it becomes a big amount. So, ganun siya. No? With the revenue, marami talagang pwedeng gawing fraudulent activity over that, no? Of course, lalo na kung may pressure ang management in giving good amount of revenue, or in short, yung window dressing, we want to appear that the financial statement is financially healthy by giving good financial ratios. Let's say, for example, good current ratio, good working capital, higher profit margins, lower liabilities, no, to have lower debt to equity ratio, mga tipong ganun. Okay? So, also the Pareto chart is a creative way of looking at causes of problems because it helps stimulate thinking and organize thoughts. So, totoo naman talaga na the Pareto chart would give you a lot, would make you more effective and efficient. You are efficient in a way that you are exerting less effort on areas that would require a lot of attention, rather than giving or exerting effort on matters that would only be of small significance to your to you or to the audit, no? Kunwari, you do audit for, yung example natin, prepaid expense, no? Kunwari, you want to check or to audit ano ba yung mga small areas na usually hindi naman talaga dapat nang tignan, no? Pero tinitingnan pa rin, no? Through checking or checking the balances or the nature of the balances, no? Kunwari, mga liabilities or accruals, no, that is due to the government. Let's say, for example, withholding tax. Withholding tax, no, by its nature, it's a small amount. Though, it is a mandated government tawag dito, mandate to remit the taxes to the BIR, no, pero you would not really focus very much on that account. Okay? Pero you would just only, ano bang pwede mo lang gawin? You want to check if the withholding taxes are tied up with the with the filed tax returns, no, or based from the alpha list of employees, no, kung talaga bang they are equal to each other, no, mga tipong ganun. Okay? Also, through sampling, no, pwede sa sample, we want to sample items of high value most likely. Kasi, for example, in a population, you have 1 million inventory, and 800,000 of that 1 million only constitute a small quantity of inventory. Through, the Pareto principle would follow. So, you want to check na lang yung small amount, small quantity of inventory which has a value of 800,000. So, let's say, ang quantity niya lang is apat na items lang pero worth na 800,000. And then yung remaining inventory items, meron ka pang 1,000. Of course, you would want to check na, tignan mo na lang yung apat na item na yon, which constitutes 80% of the total value of the inventory. The Pareto principle has been followed through that. Na-follow natin yung Pareto principle. So, through that, you are also effective at the same time efficient. You exert less effort. Rather than checking the remaining 1,000 inventory item which only constitute 20% of the total inventory value. So, yun, doon ka magiging very analytical, no? That's why it really stimulates thinking and it will definitely organize your thoughts. Okay? The value of the Pareto principle for a project manager is that it reminds them to focus on 20% of the things that matter. Okay? Of the things you do during the project or the audit, only 20% are really important. Tulad nga ng nasabi natin kanina sa pagsasample natin. Those 20% produce 80% of your results. Identify and focus on those things first, but do not totally ignore the remaining 80% of the causes. So, you can also look into the remaining 80% pero through mere sampling na lang, no? Just to make sure na talagang you considered also the remaining item. But not necessarily you would check all. Pwedeng sampling na lang. Okay? As a basic quality improvement tool, Pareto analysis can define categories of defects which cause a particular output such as product, service, or unit to be defective. It can also count the frequency of occurrence of each defect. It can also display graphically as a bar chart also, sorted in descending order by frequency of defect, and use a second y-axis to show the cumulative percentage of defects. So, ano yung itsura ng Pareto chart? Ito siya. Okay? So, through the Pareto chart, no, we have definitely the x and y axis. Pero yung y axis niya, it has two labels, no. Yun yung mahirap pag dalawa yung label, no. Pero dapat isa lang, okay? Now for the x axis, we have here the type of defect. So, in defect na to, we have here defects in shirts. So, we have identified five types of defects. We have the button defect, we have the pocket defect, we have the collar defect, and we have the sleeve defect and the cuff defect, no, yung cuff dito. Okay? So, as you can see, now, we have here the value of x-axis, the frequency of occurrence, and on the right side of the chart, we have here the x-axis showing the cumulative percentage. So, doon mo makikita, ma-analyze. So, dapat daw, in the Pareto chart, in descending order yung frequency. So, most likely, kung ano yung pinakamataas na frequency, siya yung nasa leftmost portion. And then, in descending order. So, dapat, yung makikita mo sa right portion, would have the lowest frequency of occurrence. So, titingnan natin. Now, the button defects has a frequency of possibly 22, no? Ito, value to, no? And then, it says here that in terms of cumulative percentage, it constitutes 40%. Okay? And then, for the pocket defect, we have accounted for more than 15 frequency. It's possible 16 siya. Now, bakit siya paakyat dito? Bakit ng paakyat? Kasi we are accumulating the frequency over the total, no? Let's say for example, going back to the button defect, no? Hindi ko lang alam kung ano yung total nito. Let's say ako magko-compute manually. 23 plus 16, 39, 39 plus 10, 49 plus 6, 55, 55 plus possibly 3. So, pagpalagay natin 60. Okay? So, dito, yung 23 over 60, it constitute 40% of the total percent. No? So, that is possible, no? 23 over 60, that is dito, base sa cumulative percentage, it's 40%. Now, with the pocket defect, we have accounted here 16 defects. Okay, so how can we get the cumulative percentage? So you just add the frequency of the the cumulative frequency, no? You add the number of defects for the button, and then you add the number for, or the frequency for the pocket defect, and the sum of it, you divided it by the total frequency. And then you plot here the corresponding cumulative percentage under both the button defect and the pocket defect in this bar. Okay. Now, in the color defect, we have noted 10 defects. So, you just add again the button defect, the pocket defect, the color defect, all over the total defects. And you'll get the cumulative percentage of these 3 defects. So, most likely siya ay more than 80. So, meaning to say, the three defects here, the button defect, the pocket defect, the color defect, already constitute 80% of the number of defects. So, that is the Pareto principle. Okay? Naintindihan? So, how to use the Pareto chart, no? So, in the book, it is indicated that we have set um, uh, how to use it, no? Okay, number one, identify and list the problems, no? It will really depend ano yung gusto mong makita, no? It's possible you want to know the cause of the problem, no? You identify the problem. Number two, ito na yun, no? Identify the root cause of each problem. Not just merely problem, but the root cause. Meaning, you would use possibly 5 whys, no? Why, hanggang sa makuha mo yung root cause. Not just merely getting the cause of the problem. Kasi once we identify the solution to that problem, we are just merely temporarily, ano yun, parang nilalagay mo lang ng bandage yung problem, pero hindi niya talaga na tawag dito na re-resolve ako ano yung talagang problema ng yung root cause ng mismong problem. Okay? And then next we have to number 3, to score the problems. Okay? And then number 4, group the problems together by the root cause. And number 5, add up the scores for each group. And number 6, take action. So, kung sino may pinakamalaking score for each group, so most likely siya yung una mong you would take an action over that problem. Okay? So, most likely may mga ibang root causes or may ibang problems na hindi pa ganun ka at the moment very glaring na you need to solve, no? Parang most likely, no, kung sino may pinakamataas na score, siya talaga yung merong root cause of the problem, no? Yun yung kailangan mong i-take ng action so as to eventually solve majority of the problem. So, ewan ko nagigets nyo ako, pero yun yung ibig sabihin ng Pareto chart, no? We want to correct or to address the root cause of the problem so as to correct fully the tawag doon the effect, no? Hindi lang mere bandage lang siya. Kasi possible meron kang cause of the problem pero it is not really the it really not represents 80% of the cause of the problem. Possible 10% lang. Now if you do the root cause, no, possibly you are addressing 80% of the problem. Okay? So now we go to the cause and effect diagram. So siguro discuss ko na lang muna yung theory of the cause and effect diagram. Then the remaining would be a video lecture na lang na i-upload ko, okay? So, the cause and effect diagram is also known as the fishbone diagram or the Ishikawa diagram. It is one of the best tools that help to identify contributing causes of an issue and hone into the root cause most accurately. So, parang rin to, no, yung Pareto chart, no? Pero ito, possible, isang problem yung gusto nating address and maraming mga causes and nag-drill tayo na nag-drill, no? Nanganak yung kanyang cause hanggang sa makuha natin yung root cause. And it's possible na magkakaiba yung root cause. We need to address each of the root cause para totally ma-eliminate yung problem. Okay? This approach is useful for compliance reviews where operators should do what the contract, law, regulation, or procedure documentation requires. Okay, so baka kasi mamaya meron tayong deviation. May nakaset naman na policy, may nakaset naman procedure, may kontrata naman, no? May batas naman, may regulation naman tayong sinusunod. Pero bakit ganun? Bakit hindi natin na-address? So through the cause and effect diagram, we can determine what is the root cause of the said problem. Okay? Most likely kasi based on experience, ang root cause problem lang inadequate training, so kulang lang talaga sa training. Yun yung usually root cause of the problem. Not necessarily incompetence of the people, no? Or tawag dito, walang pakialam yung manager. But if you really look into the problem further, no, you really get the root cause of the problem. Usually training lang yung kailangan. Okay? And yung iba through documenting the policy and procedure for them to follow. Kasi iba, baka nahihirapan talagang mag-comply with the statute, no? Kasi walang documentation or walang sinusunod na na policy and procedure. Okay? So this approach is also useful for financial reviews where accountants and others involved in record keeping and preparing the financial statement must adhere to applicable accounting standards. So, let's say for example, remember, we need to check if the accounting policies are in accordance with the accounting standards or the applicable financial reporting framework. No? If not, what is causing the deviation or material misstatement? No? And dito papasok din si cause and effect diagram. It's possible it is rooting from the controls. Kaya nga, remember, we are also looking the controls over financial reporting. It's possible that the root cause of the problem stems from the controls. Again, controls would include in the financial reporting policy and procedure, training. Okay? So, yun, 'di ba? Nakita nyo umiikot lang yung discussion natin sa sa mga nauna nating discussion previously. Okay? So, in here, identifying the cause of or the root cause of problems is a constant challenge really, no, for internal auditors. One of the best tools that help contributing causes of an issue and hone into the root cause is basically the fishbone diagram. Okay? It is very important to remember that many organizational issues are the product of multiple causes or reasons. Okay, however, many auditors, especially those accustomed to performing compliance and financial audits, treat issues from a binary perspective. So, when I say binary perspective, yun nga yung sinasabi natin. Kung ano yung maisipang cause, yun na yun. So, binary, cause and effect. Pero dapat yan, root cause, cause, and effect. Yun yung fishbone diagram. Okay? So, this means they use the following process. So, number one, identify what should have been done, no? If ever meron ng na-identify na natin yung root cause. Number two, verify that what has been done is consistent with what should have been done. So, remember the consistency principle, no? Lalo na sa accounting. We want the accounting principles or the standards to be applied consistently, no, sa organization or sa business. Kasi kung hindi, there is an issue of what we call incomparability. Hindi natin ma-compare yung information. Kaya nga meron tayong 2 periods wherein we compare the balances and the results of the operations of the company, no? Kailangan consistent siya to make it comparable. Okay? If yes, no, kung walang inconsistency, then report no finding and eventually close the working papers. If no, kung merong inconsistency, then write up a finding and recommend that the practice in the future be consistent with the guidelines set in item that we have mentioned na identify what should have been done. No? Meaning, what should have been done, yun yung standard, dapat we stick to that concept na yun yung ginagawa in actual, no? Para the design of the policy and procedure is really being currently practiced by the organization. This approach is useful for compliance reviews where nasabi ko na nga pala to, no? So, very useful siya for both the compliance reviews and financial reviews, no? Okay? So, anong itsura ng ng tawag dito ng fishbone diagram? So, ito 'yon. Okay? I think nasa book din naman to. So, in here, an example here would be part dimensional quality. So, ano yung mga dapat tignan natin, no? Na matter or factors to have the quality, the manpower, the material, the machine, and method. So, ito ibang way on doing analysis. Sa atin, in audit, we need to check ano yung root cause of the problem or of the issue. No? In order for us to effectively recommend the management ano yung dapat gawin. Okay?